all for coming tonight and being interested in this project. My name is Tracy Clothier, and I'm a planner with the LA Group down in Saratoga Springs. And I'm here with my partner, Mike Panich, who's a landscape designer. So we're here tonight to show you what we've come up with for a recreational trail system for Battle Hill. But I first want to tell you, I ran into Virginia Parrott, how it was important. She also said Burgoyne marched in front of her house. So I'm not sure about that, but she got me so inspired about this project, which I wasn't involved with until about 8 months ago. So she really, truly was an inspiration, and I wanted to acknowledge that. So our job is really was to create a conceptual plan that blended recreational trails with interpretive signage to provide a destination for residents and visitors. And this is a common model being multiplied across the area, and I think this is going to be with some modifications. I think it's really going to be a great addition to the town of Fort Anne and its cultural resources. I'm going to read just the historical significance. In your little bulletin that flyer handout, you'll see the little map here that I like because in red it outlines, and you'll see where Fort Anne is in the whole scheme of things. It's pretty significant. And I'm just going to read this quickly so that everybody's up to speed on exactly what happened here. Battle of Fort Anne was a key element in Burgoyne's 1777 campaign and ultimately led to his defeat and surrender at Saratoga. It's the site where the British 9th Regiment withdrew following a rear attack by the Continental Army. Fort Anne appeared to be next, that it would fall, but instead changed the whole momentum of the campaign. Forces with the Continental Major General Philip Schuyler strategically destroyed roads and obstructed the creeks, and just made it unbelievably difficult to get through. And it resulted in delaying Burgoyne's trip down to Saratoga. And these actions ensured a Patriot victory at Saratoga, which boosted American morale and secured the French intervention. And the American Battlefield Protection Program recognizes Battle Hill as a Priority 2 Class C battlefield and lists it as a principal battlefield of the Revolutionary War. I think this has been coming on since, I think, 1927, when 1927, when first people were trying to get it recognized. So it's taken many, 90 years and we are important and finally get recognized. So it's pretty wonderful. And it came about because it was going to be mined by a private developer and destroy some of the artifacts and historic areas of that area. So the Civil War Trust actually bought the property, gave it to the town, in conjunction with the land trust called the Agricultural Stewardship Association over in Washington County, and they're holding and managing the conservation easement, which will protect the land forever. So all we'll be able to ever do on this land is have a recreational trail. So some of the work that's already been completed on the site is an archaeological study, but before that they had to decide where's the boundary. So they did a boundary study, they did they looked at the artifacts and where they were lying, the artillery, etc. They delineated the battle and did a whole survey of the area as best they could. So all that work's been completed, and now we can move forward. It doesn't mean the end of archaeology. There's a lot of archaeology that can be completed on this site. So that will continue. There has been an application submitted to the National Register of Historic Places, and I suspect that will be successful. I don't know, Christine, do you know the status of that yet? No, still pending, okay. Regionally, I have to just say that on a regional basis, this site is so important. This wonderful Route 4, which is kind of dangerous in that area, but it's called an all-American road by the United States, making it a destination into itself. That's how high in importance Route 4 is. It's along the Lakes de Lacs Passage, which is a national and state scenic byway. Route 4 is also a bike route 9, which is an on-road bike route for those who would take their lives in their hands and go and ride that road, but they do, and they do all the way up from Waterford up to the border. They do. And then we have the Champlain Canalway Trail that is located just south of here. Originally it was going to go along Route 4, and then it was determined that we couldn't find an alternative route off-road, and on-road it just didn't make any sense. It was too dangerous. So right now, the Canalway Trail is going to come up its usual route in through the old lock 16 and 17, and then it's going to cross the bridge, Clay Hill Bridge, and go into the campground at more or less the top of the hill, and wind around back out onto Clay Hill Road. And eventually it'll end up on 22 and wind its way back to Route 4, where it will continue north to Whitehall off-road. And so that's pretty exciting. Now, why is that exciting? Well, this Empire State Trail is funded, first of all. The governor wants this trail to happen. And so you're going to get visitors, and you have to think about what else can they do and how can you grab them into Fort Anne, have a respite spot there, have things for them to do. I mean, we do have the beer hall, so that's a great place for people. And this as a destination will be very, very important for people to actually learn more about why Fort Anne is so important. They see the old bank, and they go, what's that? And was there a fort here? And it says Fort Anne, but there's really no full understanding of what has happened here. So I think this is going to go a long way to do that. So I think of it as like a charm on a necklace, right? It's just one of the beautiful charms up and down the Hudson River and Champlain Canal. And we're trying to link them all together on a regional basis so that people will understand it. We can create itineraries, and this can be one of them. So that's generally it. I just want you to understand that it's not just Battle Hill in Fort Anne. It's part of a much bigger picture, just as the battle itself was. It just wasn't Fort Anne. It had ramifications all the way down the line. So I think I will turn it over to Michael to really give you the ins and outs of what we are actually proposing.
Yes, to get into the nitty-gritty of the design concept, I'm going to start with the existing conditions. Just to orient yourself, we've got Battle Hill, the kind of mountain slope up here, the top of which is outlined in blue as the key terrain. These terms, by the way, were part of the study that Binghamton University did on the site that kind of mapped where everything happened during the battle, looking at the slopes and the historic and outlining places where key battle, the final part of the battle occurred. So key terrain being the topmost of the hill, essentially being the strategic and tactical objective when the British retreated up the hill. They wanted to secure the key terrain where they held their positions, and fired down on the next layer down the hill, which is the observation field of fire, where these two, several places, but one of the highlights being these Hill 1 fire positions where the battle was kind of deadlocked during the second day of the battle. And then moving outward from there, we've got the avenues of approach, where essentially on the first day when the British were camped down at the base of the hill, and the Continental Army met them in battle, they retreated up the hill. So this is kind of the area where that initial happened, essentially, these are kind of key areas that are kind of going to inform where we want to have interpretive areas and how we want to interpret the trail and the battle, how we're going to use the trail to interpret the battle, I should say. This all being on the hillside, it's all very rough terrain, it's all very difficult to cross. And the key area off of the hill where we'd be able to bring people to the site being located on this property here, which is the Caproot property, which the town is currently, Caproot property, which the town is looking to acquire in the near future. Down here we've got more gentle slopes, fields where we'll be able to bring people in via an access path off of Route 4 and then have a parking lot, trailhead area where we can have an interpretive plaza to tell the story. So that's kind of the key existing conditions, and that kind of jumps us to the overall development plan where we kind of outline, we took a phased approach to the design, knowing that it's a lot to ask to kind of make this all happen all at once. Usually baby steps is the best way to ensure that we're able to establish the ultimate goal. The first phase being the priority is getting people to the site and having people be able to come to the site. Phase 1 is developing the entry, drive, parking lot, trailhead area, which would have an interpretive plaza off of the parking lot and drop-off, turnaround for vehicles, bike parking for those sorts of pedestrians that arrive via bicycle, and parking for vehicles. And also connect the trailhead area down to the Memorial Plaque, which is off of Route 4 right near the entry to the site. This would be the first phase, and it gets everybody to the site, and given that this is on the gentle part of the property, this can be all accessible so that everybody can arrive, everybody can see everything, and the whole story can be told at the interpretive plaza so that the widest audience is reached. Phases 2 and 3 all involve getting up to the hill, which is not an easy task, and the only way to do so is to have a very rugged hiking trail, not accessible in nature, in order to reconnoiter the hill, so to speak. So phase 2 establishes the first loop off of the trailhead, dubbed it the Field of Fire loop. Mainly concentrates on interpreting the key battles along the Field of Fire key terrain area. Establishes a hiking trail that would weave up either side of the northwest and the southeast sides of the hill to aid at where the ground, the terrain plateaus a bit and then leads to these two key areas, which are the Continental rifle and musket firing positions, and kind of the Field of Fire, the kill zone, if you will, where the two hills kind of looks down and fire upon the Continental troops. So that establishes phase 2 as a loop and a small segment that kind of has a destination interpretive plaza area. And then from there, we would have the final phase, the key terrain trail loop, where you continue up through the hill, having rest areas along the way, and a few key interpretive nodes where we can interpret different things from the key terrain and more interpretation on the battles, the avenue of retreat, and so on and so forth. Final board here showing the design is just an enlargement of those first 2 phases to give you a better view of it. So here you can see entry drive coming up, a 24-foot wide drive to allow for two-way traffic easily coming to and from the site, as well as a parking area. Right now we've got it with 25 spaces, dedicated accessible spaces, drop-off and turnaround area. Here would be the trailhead. We're going to have an interpretive plaza that has key wayfinding, signage, interpretive signage, seating, decorative seating, natural seating, hardscape elements, could be landscaped as well. And And then phase 2 again has the trail looping around the beginning of the hill and then leading to the spur that has the field fire interpretive destination node.
Michael, you and I walked it in May with George.
Yes.
And it was challenging, especially for me. But I noticed there were no leaves on the trees. Where can you point to some of the vistas or the area
Yes.
where you might
So,
encounter a scenic vista?
Phase 3 kind of is occurring at the top of the hill, and each of these yellow circles here with the eyes, the interpretive nodes, each one of those is located at an area that both would allow for interpretation of the surrounding environment and the historical significance of it, but would also afford, probably with some key vegetative trimming back, you can open up views to the wider region and Hudson, down Fort Anne. So that would be at each of these sites, which if you can see over here on the photo board, we've got some existing conditions photos. Phase 1 area, this is the existing entry area. You can see it's already flattened out and there's already an accessible drive that's been used historically to access the site. And here in the background you see the flattish green area, that's the fields where the parking lot will be placed. Phase 2 shows kind of a characteristic, difficult to walk across path, steep and rustic in nature. And then there's also areas where it levels off and you can kind of see the view beyond it. It's quite a nice walk through the woodland. This larger image here shows, it's tough to see, but we invite you to all come up and take a look. There's 2 hills on either side. This is at the Field of Fire interpretive destination area, which would occur essentially right here down on the flat land, and then up here would be the key, or the rifle firing position and the musket firing position, as determined from the historical studies. And then phase 3 here's an example of where you can see the vista through the trees going out towards the river that winds beyond, and also just the general character of the site around the top of the hill. Is that that question?
Yeah, I think so. How many people have actually been up on the hill? Any? Some. It's gorgeous. It's so, for those of you who haven't, I mean, I thought it was stunning, and the terrain changes constantly. The rocks are beautiful. The whole experience was really neat. Running water, it was really quite special. And I can see how this can work. This can be developed and tell the story, both at the interpretive plaza and at the trail itself. I can see it working. How about you? Do you see that this can happen?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good.
Some other key things to consider. This design doesn't really exist in a vacuum, and it's not something that is written in stone. In terms of stone, material-wise is going to be really what factors in the ultimate cost of creating this sort of project. And there's different kind of levels from the more affordable, minimal development to the Cadillacs of the design world. And so those will kind of be factored into what the cost ultimately would be for creating this project. Some examples for like the parking areas and the entry drives. Keep it just an unpaved dirt path. We could upgrade it to the gravel across for the entry drive and for the parking. You could do a hybrid where you have asphalt road, entry road into the site, and then just the parking stalls themselves would be gravel, where you could have asphalt all the way, which would be the longest lasting and would require the least amount of maintenance long term. Similarly, at the trailhead and at interpretive nodes, you can have a similar kind of minimal approach where you have just kind of unpaved, rustic, natural surface on the ground, and then kind of rustic or simple signage for wayfinding and interpretation. or you could have simple pavement, clean, kind of modern signs, freestanding, or you can go the next level and have kind of sign panels mounted onto natural stone wall with more concrete pavement or pavers, kind of the holy grail of having like interpretive walls where they're both interpreting and giving information, but they're also art amongst all their own. So if you guys want to come up and kind of take a gander at that, in general, just the least expensive to the priciest from left to right, and then similarly signs, examples, and wayfinding. You can have just simple markers on the trees, or you can have kind of freestanding posts or more monumental interpretive wayfinding signs. And then we've got an estimate that kind of reflects what each phase would be under each of those kind of considerations, whether it's the minimal approach, a value engineered approach, which is kind of somewhere in the middle, and then more of the full development, or depending on the funding obtained, would not necessarily be out of the question.
What's the total funding for each one of the areas?
So for phase one, minimal development, for the parking area, entry drive, trailhead, $200,000 was our estimate for installing that. For the value engineered, it gets bumped up to $300,000. Essentially, everything in the minimal being unpaved, being gravel with select asphalt for the key accessible areas, $300,000, and then the full development was $685,000. So it's a rather steep upgrade cost. And then for phase two, 85, 115, 170, and phase three, 102, 130, and 181. So for grand totals, for minimum development, for all three phases, we're envisioning it would cost around $387,000. Value engineered, $545,000. Full developments, $1 million roughly. Now this cost is not considering various things like North Country Community College, which has expressed interest in building trails, coming down and using their labor to build it, stuff like that. Donated materials, there's some OCs also has experience with building these sorts of projects, and that's a way for the kids to learn, and then they're professional professionals through it, and at the end of the day you have built design, then we didn't pay beyond materials. But then beyond that, there's also grant opportunities.
Yes. Now, in terms of the wayfinding and interpretive signage, we're looking at an American Battlefield Protection Program. We'll have a grant out, we believe this fall, Kathy said this fall, that would pay for design of this, because there's a lot of elements to a signage plan. You know, what is it going to say? How does one build upon the other? How do you get the story right? There could be a lot of arguments over just that, right, Dale? Lots of arguments over that. So that takes some time, and it will take a chunk of money that we believe the American Battlefield Protection Program will pay for. And actually, Kathy has agreed to write the grant. So that's the next. I would say that's the very next step, is to get that in motion. And there are small grants through the Hudson River Valley Greenway, which pay for this effort. And once this is closed out, you can apply for additional grants, and you know they're anywhere between 10 and 20,000. But you can pick away at these things. The big cost, trail construction, well, you have two avenues. One is through the Department of State Local Waterfront Revitalization Program, which is the best, because they are 75-25 right now, and you are part of you've already done a waterfront program, believe it or not, and I've forgotten the year, but I participated in that with the town, and that makes you eligible for those funds to build this trail. So those funds will be available. There would have to be a match. That could be, you know, cash from some contributors, business people in the community. Also, the New York State Office of Parks offers a grant program. It's a federal program they offer usually every other year. It's not up right now. That's a 50-50 grant program. My advice would be to go with the signage for the American Battlefield Protection Program and the Department of State grant that will come up in June of next year, July. It'll be due in July of next year. So that's basically it. I hope you're excited about it because really it does, you know, I say it's a charm on the necklace of the Champlain Canal Hudson River corridor. It really is, and it's a significant one. And many of us have been working on making these little charms come to life. These are special little places that together, taken together, we hope will interest people. We have a lot more international visitors, we know that, right? Not sure where the American ones are, but we'll work on that. We're constantly working on getting people off the Northway. We struggle.
I've had a lot of people ask the question, what are the trails going to look like? Are they going to be where you're climbing over tree roots, it's rocks, or it's going to be crushed stone, or what, or in between, or what?
Well, I think most of us believe that they should be natural.
Yeah.
It's such a wild area. I can't imagine, you know, unless there's an area that is too sensitive and you need to protect it, I would put crushed stone there, but most of it, I think we envision clearing a good section, right? Because there are ticks up there, and that will inhibit people using it unless you clear the trail a good distance. So we usually build a box around and we clear the trail, but I think we had initially in our committee talked about keeping it natural, keeping it as natural as possible. And the next, you know, step in all this that I'm going to do is evaluate what permits might be needed. And you know, you're talking about, I don't think the trail itself is going to require, but if you cross the stream, that's a permit. This is this entrance with DOT. We're going to have to work very hard with them to get access there, a highway access permit. There are, as you all probably know, some wetlands up and through here that, particularly down in here, that we will have to avoid, and likely need a permit through there to get the driveway in. But other than that, I think you're in good shape. And we're going to lay it out in our report. We're going to lay it out in steps, the best way you could move forward. You'll have choices, of course, but.
Kathy, now, Tracy, we took the walk up there. We didn't follow a precise trail. How are we going to actually, now we know there are several locations up there that were actually part of the field of fire the British used to fire back at our troops. And in one spot up there, there's a real good lookout that you can look right across Wood Creek or the Champlain Canal, that where some British soldier had a lucky shot and wounded Colonel Van Rensselaer from Battle Hill. Are we going to initially try to locate those positions to make the trail access them?
Well, this is the concept, right? We are at the conceptual level here. This is what can be done. And the next step would be to go to design and engineering. So you'd delve deeper into it, and I think you can use this information to do further archaeology and make sure we put this trail where it should go. I think you can explain it.
Yeah, so the design's a reiterative process. What's on the paper right now is not necessarily what's going to be what's finally established in the field. It's going to be a blend of both taking this, rewalking it, and seeing how we match things up. But essentially, what's on the paper now is a blend of what we walked together with you, and then also looking at the terrain from the topography that we've got on file, and trying to kind of thread the needle the best route possible to allow for the trail to exist without having to traverse too steep a grade or a sheer wall, so to speak. when the next kind of phase comes in the design of it, we're gonna reiterate on that, and we're gonna shift it where we need to after we kind of go back out in the field and see what we've done. But beyond that, even after the final design, the construction drawings are completed, there's still gonna be a level of kind of in the field changes that happen where the team is out there, they're building the trail, they get to a certain point and they realize that if we just did this instead of what's on paper doing that, it's gonna make for a much better experience. And so those sorts of changes happen all the time, particularly when building a trail of this nature. The design of it in terms of what the material is gonna be and the width of the trails, we're basing everything off of the New York Trail standards for a hiking trail that is interpretive in nature, that calls for usually a 4 to 6 foot wide trail and with like a 10-foot wide cleared zone and 10-foot vertical cleared zone as the starting point. Certainly in some of the more leveled areas where things widen out, there's consideration where you could widen the path or at least the clearing of it. But certainly when you're going up the steepest sides of the hill where it's going to be switchbacks, that's probably going to be more of the 4 foot wide or the minimum width possible, just to make sure that we can get everybody up the hill before we kind of relax, take a deep breath, and then continue on. Wait.
We did find some of those spots.
What's that?
We did find some of those
We
spots.
certainly did. Any questions?
So I have one. So basically, what we probably ought to do too is hire somebody that's really expert in military terrain analysis to match up the trail to, like you said, we got the basics of where the field of fire is. But how do we go from what's written to what's on the ground? I mean, you saw my report, I mean, it just tells me, up this hill, what's here, and over there in that tree or something. It doesn't give me a map saying this is the way. How do we interpret that from this?
I think that
That's the hard.
given the interest of previous archaeological studies, it might be worth inviting Binghamton to come back up and to reevaluate the site with this in mind and see if we hit the mark or if we can refine it better, actually walk it.
Yeah, because they took the first research, Binghamton did, and then the archaeologist came down and was reading from the notes. The first one, it was almost dead on from what he could tell from research, that they found the artifact.
Right.
But because of trying to keep it from everybody going up there raiding it, there isn't a whole good explanation at this point of where everything is. Because we don't want it falling down.
Well, that's another thing to
Yeah.
consider is how
Yeah.
fine a tooth do you comb everything with and how descriptive are you in the
That's
interpretive
a
nature of
worry.
it, where you end up with people coming out here with metal detectors and scalping all the good.
And that's one of the things
Yeah,
that,
that's a concern.
how do we prevent that?
Well, see, I think, my personal opinion is, that's pretty good right there, just right there, them signs, that interpretation. This is where they were, this is key terrain, this is retreat, we'll leave it at that. Because they said there's still many acres that there is stuff still up there. And we want to kind of like leave that alone if we could, but we don't want anybody up there with metal detectors as soon as we open this up.
Right.
So that's one of our concerns, because to us, it's also, sacred place, people may come out there, so we don't want people up there digging either. And so I would kind of like keep the interpretation basic, that's my opinion, but that's up to the town. Kind of like this is where they were and kind of keep going. It's my personal opinion. I don't think we should get that involved with who was where and what was found, the bucket was over here and the button was there, I don't.
Well, there's that one key area that, what was the professor from North Country?
Yeah, I remember Tom, whatever.
Yeah. Something like
Yeah.
that. Well, he's a historian, and he wrote books on the Civil War and what have you, and he's read a lot on the Battle of Fort Anne. And he basically walked it up to that one point I spoke to you about, where, the rifleman, he must have had a rifle, because he shot from Battle Hill across Wood Creek and wounded Van Rensselaer. And he goes, this is it. You look, he goes, you can see over there, and here, this has got to be the spot. you know, and him and I walked right to it. But it's amazing, because you stand there and you can see, well, you got one picture there where you look right up the canal, which actually was Wood Creek at that spot, you can see. But you look from that, it's actually a nice rock outcropping that you look right across, you know, the canal and everything. It's
Sam?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think that a lot of the questions, things we're asking now are things we will get into as a committee as we progress through the rest of the process. And then we can come back and report, as we've done tonight, once we get all of those things out and put out in place. And I wanted to thank Tracy and Mike for the excellent job they did and for the guidance they did and get us pointed in the right direction with this, and we'll continue on along that road. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
I have a question. I'm Angie here. Yesterday, or this past weekend, I was at the Mount Independence. And I'm looking at your maps here. And I walked that whole trail yesterday, or Saturday, whichever day we were up there. And I see a remarkable resemblance to what you got here. I would suggest that the committee that gets together and take a ride up there and talk to those people, and walk around their site, which is remarkably the same as you got here, and in the way they have it designed and the walkways they have, would be a great help in inspiring or building this whole project. As far as like, she was, you know, Christine was saying about the pilferage or people going up the middle. They have signs all over the place, and they are closed they close October 15th. And there's a lot of people go up there and walk the trail. It's a very nice walking trail in the way they designed it. And they have trails right along rock ledges, how they designed them going around, and they have specific sites using that particular signage right there with the thing, which is very nice, and it works. But of course, they have a museum at the foot, too, which could be way down the line somewhere in the shape of a plateau. But basically, the whole system could be, you know, you can get a great amount of ideas if you get the committee, whoever is going to be doing this, to take a ride up there and just walk around. Because they're open, the museum is closed, but the place is open all year round. But you can walk around.
What's your name?
Tony Cantanucci.
Hi, Tony. I have to tell you that 2 weeks ago, I went to Mount Independence just out of the blue, and I totally agree with you. What a great place. And they have interpretation.
Yeah.
They have signage. It's just enough. It's like they didn't overdo it. I don't know, somebody did a wonderful job. I did take pictures, and where they use for the switchbacks, they use stone
Yep.
and put big stones along. It's very
And they built it
unique.
up so it was level for easy
Yeah.
walking, you know.
Low key,
Yeah, 'cause
you
they had
know.
an reenactment up there all weekend in different posts with
Oh, they
different
did?
things. They had different stations.
Yeah, that's a very neat area.
Yeah.
And that's another jewel, really, I mean, for people to visit right along this. And now, you know, we really have, besides Fort Ticonderoga, there's just a wonderful little set of places for people who are interested to go. The museum is amazing.
Yes, it is, very much so. Vermont does a good job on historical
Yeah,
sites.
just enough.
The interconnection between Fort Ty, which you just mentioned, they talk about the battle of Fort Anne and how, you know, everything kind of went through Fort Ty and came down here. So is there a way that all this is going to be interconnected by information from there to here to what's the next step? You know, where did they go next? You know, is that all going to be? Is that?
Yeah, I think it's
somewhat-
part of the interpretive story, and how that's told exactly will depend on how a committee determines, you know, what they want. You know, it's a lot of thinking through, but I agree with you. I go to a lot of places and you don't get that whole, where are we inside of this whole picture? And I think this little map that was in one of the archaeological reports is just, I think that tells you exactly all these places and shows Fort Anne was major.
Yeah, but you go to Crown Point, I was at Crown Point 2 weeks ago,
Yeah.
and you studied the map, you watched a little movie, they give a little movie and everything. Fort Anne is not even mentioned.
You get it.
At Fort Ty, it's a very significant part of it. You go out on the boat that takes you down, out on the lake and stuff, they talk about Fort Anne a lot.
Oh, they do?
Yeah, now,
Yeah.
they never
Gonna
used
take
to.
that.
I think that it'll kind of snowball,
Yeah.
it wouldn't be a bad idea to try to increase the outreach to
Yeah.
both Fort Ty.
Mhm.
Well, if you go to the battlefield, they barely mention Bennington.
Yeah.
Yes, I
Yeah, that's
remember.
kind of
And
surprising,
They
but,
barely mention Hubbardton.
yeah, it's kind of weird, but,
But the funny, the ironical thing about this, like earlier they're saying there was rattlesnakes up here. Believe it or not, the Mount Independence, the original name was called Rattlesnake Mountain.
Mr. Catbrew, when we walked up on Battle Hill, what was that, just a few weeks ago. He says, when he went up there deer hunting, he saw rattlesnakes all over that. And I go, it's amazing, I've been over this since I was 12 years old, and I've never seen a rattlesnake here. And he claims there's rattlesnakes all over Battle Hill.
They're protected, by the way. They're
all right,
protected.
thank you. We're gonna leave these maps with the town, so you'll be able to,
Okay, very good.
I have a small set on the board, or on the table back there, if anybody after the meeting wants to take a gander at them.
I was enthusiastic about taking certain dog.
All right, we'll continue on now with the meeting. Next on the agenda are the reports, the monthly reports, to the supervisor's report. I want to remind everyone that the first budget meeting will be held on Tuesday, October 2nd, at 6 p.m. at the town hall. And the next budget meeting will take place on the 16th. And finally, the public hearing will take place on November 8th at 6 o'clock at the town hall, and hopefully the budget will be adopted on the 13th of November. This Wednesday, September 12th at 1 o'clock in the afternoon at the town hall, is going to be a meeting of what they call pre-construction meeting for the Hogtown culvert. There'll be someone from GPI, the engineering firm, somebody from the New York State Department of Transportation, the Washington County Superintendent of Public Works will be here, Paul Winchell, and myself, and Mr. Ruben Ellsworth will be in attendance at the meeting. The next thing on the meetings scheduled for later this month is on Thursday. Excuse me, could you lower the... On Thursday of this week at 1 o'clock, there's going to be a meeting at the town hall, a board meeting. And the meeting is, I mentioned last month, is for the Hadlock, Lake Hadlock. We're going to take a look at what's happened during the last 2 years. And we really want to know what we think we want to be doing going forward. And like I mentioned at the meeting last month, there'll be no voting that will be taking place during that meeting. It's just to have an open dialogue. Now that we've had a park manager for 2 years, to look at what's worked well and what changes need to be made as we go forward. The health insurance for renewal date is on December 1st of this year. And Paul and I will be having a meeting, Paul Winchell and I will have a meeting with the highway employees. And after that meeting, then we'll have a recommendation, Paul and I will make a recommendation to the other board members to decide what we do about health insurance as we go forward. And as you can imagine, health insurance is getting more and more expensive each year, and we've got a couple of options to look at, and hopefully be able to have the rates stay somewhat in the area of what we're paying at this point in time. Washington County is going to have a public meeting on Tuesday, September 18th at the Kingsbury Firehouse from 7 to 8:30 p.m. And the purpose of the meeting is to talk about the Housing Transition Action Plan for Washington County. Today, what happens in Washington County when some family needs to have some support, we end up either sending them to a motel, sometimes outside even Washington County, and we want to look at to see if there's a way that we could have some sort of housing available for those type of situations. And then on August 22nd, I attended a meeting over at the Fort William Henry. It was sponsored by the Lake George Park Commission, and it was about stormwater regulations. The meeting is just, at this point in time, was to get reaction from the general public. It was interesting to listen to a couple of the speakers, one in particular, and what happens next is, this is being looked at down in Albany, and once Albany decides if they're in agreement with what the Lake George Park Commission is proposing, there will be public hearings that will take place, and at that time the public will have a chance to be able to voice their opinions about the changes that are being talked about at this point in time. And that's all I have to report for. No, I do have one other thing. I'm pleased to be able to say that we were successful in getting back a check from the Greenway Grant in the amount of $5,974.05. And this was in the grant of 2014, when we hadn't submitted the paperwork. And I was pleased that Helen did a good job on making the sale with whoever it was down there that you worked with to get them to pay us the money, even though the paperwork hadn't been submitted in a timely fashion. There's going to be a SALT summit that's going to take place on October 3rd up at the Fort William Henry Conference Center in Lake George. There's a lot of talk about salt on roads and what impact it has with the lakes and the streams in the area. The lady who now is in charge of the Public Works Department at Washington County, I sent her a copy of this. She's not aware of it, and she's planning on attending. The one thing I do want to mention about the salt, the state and the county, they use 100% salt on the roads. We use a combination of salt and sand. That doesn't mean that it's less important to us, but it's not as dramatic as using 100% salt. And the last thing I have for this evening is we received a nice card from some of the kids who attended the summer rec program, and it's addressed to Dear OC, who's the gentleman that was in charge of the program this year. And I'm going to give the lecture to you, and you might want to just share it with OC itself, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next we'll hear from the town board members. Deb?
The only thing I have is while you were gone away, I got 2 phone calls. One from Joe Gunther, evidently base management is having some issues. I've called him back 3 times, he hasn't answered the phone yet. But I see on my answer machine, he did call the other day, so I don't know if this problem wasn't resolved. And also Mike Landry called, he's having issues with Lucille shooting off cannons or something, really disturbing him.
Now that's
He also didn't answer the phone when I called him back.
and I spoke to him today, and I had Mark, so we give Lucille a call this morning, and what it is they're having, once a year, they're having a Civil War reenactment. And I guess they shot the cannon off once on Friday and several times on Saturday. But I spoke to Mr. Ferrando, and I speak to him.
That's
Okay.
We had a successful summer with the beach. It is now closed. I'm hoping that we can keep the porta potties there through September, just in case people want to swim there. They'll have the porta potties there. They would be swimming at their own risk, and there is a sign saying no swimming without the lifeguard, but people do. The kayak launch, it has been installed, and it looks very good. Had a lot of help doing it, and I hope people are using it. I haven't been down to really check yet. Work on the Champlain Canal Trail is progressing. Tracy mentioned that today and what's happening in Fort Anne, so I won't go over that, but it's getting to be pretty exciting, and it looks like it's actually going to happen after many years. So people are smiling, the grades are getting wider. I went to the Office of the Aging meeting today, and I've got all kinds of handouts. Barbara's going to take them for the senior citizens. One thing is a senior restaurant dining program. You can buy a ticket for $4. There are different restaurants that you go in, and for that $4 ticket, you can get a meal. But you have to register with the Office of the Aging. So, Barb, can I ask you to have some available in your office? Yeah. Okay, and then I'll get another copy for you to have. On Wednesday, there's a nutrition education luncheon at the Fort Anne Library. You should make reservations by tomorrow, and again, the suggested donation is $3 for people over 60 and over, or $5 for people under 60. And I think this is going to be at the town hall posted. I think you posted on those.
Yes.
Like that. And then there's other nutrition pop-up events that'll be posted. The September is National Fall Prevention Month, and there's all kinds of information on how you can help yourself from falling, what to do if you do fall. There's a little questionnaire for you to answer to see if you are at risk, so it's kind of interesting to look at this. Free information dealing with if your child or grandchild is having trouble in school, who you can go to. It's legal information. Then there's another page here that has dates on seminars that you can go to. So that will be in the hands of the senior citizens. You mentioned the public meeting. Caring for caregivers, another informational packet that you can look at. And on Wednesday, October 3rd, from 10 to 4, there's a community fall festival sponsored by the Office of the Aging. It's at the Kingsbury Firehouse on Burgoyne Avenue. Prizes, workshops. They're going to have different vendors there. The vendors can go for free and sell their goods. They're hoping it'll be a lot of farm produce. We'll have entertainment, discussions on medical insurance. There'll be a program with Tai Chi. I guess that's how you say it. Tai Chi. Meals to go, or you can get a meal all day for $5. Sounds like a really interesting day, and this will be posted. I think that's about all I've got for my report.
Sam?
Yes, I would just like to thank again everybody that's working on the Battle Hill Committee for the time and effort they put in, and for the American Legion in particular, and the Historical Society here in town of Fort Anne for having the vision to follow through on that to get us started off the ground. And I think it's going to be a very advantageous thing for the whole town. And then, Supervisor, I do have a question of you that you just mentioned. The Greenway Community Grant, how much was available for that? Do you remember, you know?
For which, for
The one that we just paid from 2011?
2014?
Yeah.
That was for the trail from, the work that was done from Baldwin's Corner up to the village. And it was 50%, it was a 50-50, so.
So that was the max we could get out of it?
Yes,
Maxed out.
we got the 50% of the total amount of money that was spent.
Very good.
Denny?
Nothing. Thank you, sir.
All righty. Barbara?
I gave a check to the bookkeeper for $685.94, and I had shown you and the bookkeeper and anybody else that might look at the monthly reports when we do our annual audit. There is a new category death transcript with the passing of our registrar of vital statistics and records. That's an additional line item on our monthly report now. And that would be it.
The highway superintendent is not here this evening, so there's no report. And next we'll hear from Mark Miller, the enforcement officer.
Okay, you got my report. 7 building permits, 1 demo permit, 25 phone calls, 3 voicemails, 33 emails, 11 texts, 17 different meetings, 2 letters, 5 follow-ups, and I'm also listing that when I use the ImageMate now. I'm trying to add anything that is part of my job as far as researching information, properties or such, and I guess this may start getting longer with other things I may be using to research properties and such. So if there's any questions, I will certainly listen to your inquiries. Yes, Sam?
I'm very technically challenged, so what is ImageMate?
ImageMate is all of your properties and such are listed through the county, and you can go on the internet to ImageMate. You can, number one, you can see who the owner is. You can also see the history of that property if it's only been owned by this particular owner for a few years. You also can go on there and find the taxes that are owed or paid. You can see plot plans, any other information the county may have collected for the taxes and assessments and as such. It's pretty handy when you're researching for, say, a foreclosure on a property or such. And sometimes they name the bank, sometimes they don't. And, it's just kind of goes hand in hand if you do that first and then call Laura Chatterjee on a real property, and then you have an insight of what she might have had her answers and such.
Thank you.
Yep.
Historian, is there? Dale? Is there anything you want to say?
No, I got a comment, I'll do it later.
Okay, very good. Next, Joe Lozinski. Joe?
Other than is what in the narrative of my report, harvester's still down. We worked on it for 2.5 hours today. The rain kind of ended the repair work this morning, but weather permitting, we're going to resume tomorrow. If not, we'll resume on Wednesday to see if we can get this new valve panel to be compatible with all the moving parts of the machine, but it's still questionable as to whether or not we're going to have it to where it was prior to the breakdown, but over the next couple of days, we should be able to determine that.
By Thursday, I would imagine, when we meet.
Correct.
Thursday afternoon, you should
I'll have something more conclusive.
something more concrete, so we can make a decision at that time.
Yes, sir.
what needs to do as we go forward. All righty. The dog officer is not here this evening. We have, the board has his monthly report though, that he submitted. All right, next are the resolutions. Remember, we keep finding out to, take care of resolution number 95.
Accept bid for the replacement of Hogtown Culvert, whereas the town board of the town of Fort-de-Anne Highway advertised for bids for the replacement of Hogtown Culvert, whereas 9 bids were received and publicly opened and read aloud, whereas following review of the bids submitted and after due deliberation thereon, the town board decided to accept the submission from Ellsworth and Son Excavation, 76 Ellsworth Lane, Extension, Lake George, New York. Now therefore be it resolved that the Fort-de-Anne Town Board accepts the bid in the amount of $299,453.32 from Ellsworth and Son Excavation. Resolved, the final award of the bid will be in coordination with and is subject to the approval of the New York State Department of Transportation in accordance with the Culvert New York program under PIN 1760.76. Construction will be in strict conformance with all NYS DOT and federal aid requirements, and in the event of the NYS DOT does not approve the same, the town of Fort-de-Anne reserves the right to reject said bid.
Okay, we need a motion for that?
I'll move it.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? This $299,453, this is for the construction piece only, does not include the engineering fee, which is a little more than $92,000. Okay, I vote aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? Okay, resolution number 96.
Resolution appointing Registrar of Vital Statistics and Records. Now therefore be it resolved that the Fort-de-Anne Town Board hereby appoints Barbara J. Winchell as Registrar of Vital Statistics and Records to serve at the pleasure of the board, and be it further resolved that immediately upon Mrs. Winchell's acceptance of appointment, she shall appoint a deputy to act in her place instead in case of absence or inability, and the deputy shall accept this appointment in writing.
So we need a motion for that?
So, good, I'll second it.
Any discussion? I vote aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? Okay, resolution number 97.
Resolution appointing town historian. Whereas the Fort-de-Anne Town Board wishes to appoint Christine Milligan as town historian, and now therefore be it resolved that the Fort-de-Anne Town Board hereby appoints Christine Milligan as town historian through December 31st, 2019.
Need a motion for this?
Motion.
Second. Who was the second? Deb? Oh, Gretchen.
Any discussion? I vote aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? Okay, resolution number 98.
Resolution reappointing a member to the Board of Assessment Review, whereas David Fisk's current term as a member of the Board of Assessment Review expires on September 30th, 2018, and whereas the Fort-de-Anne Town Board wishes to reappoint David Fisk to a new term as a member of the Board of Assessment Review, and now therefore be it resolved that David Fisk hereby reappointed as a member of the Fort-de-Anne Board of Assessment Review for a term extending from October 1st, 2018 through September 30th, 2023.
We need a motion for this?
I'll move it. Second.
Any discussion needed? I vote aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? And the last resolution for this evening, number 99.
Resolution for Hogtown Road Culvert Replacement Funding and Appropriations in coordination with Culvert New York Program and NYSDEC County WQUIP grant. Resolved that the additional sum of $391,778.40 for construction inspection, construction support is hereby appropriated from the general fund and made available to cover the cost of participation in the above phase of the project. And be it further resolved that the event, the full federal and non-federal share cost of the project exceeds the amount appropriated above,
the town board of the town of Fort Anne shall convene as soon as possible to appropriate said excess amount immediately upon the notification by the New York State Department of Transportation. Thereof, and be it further resolved that the town supervisor of the town of Fort Anne be and is hereby authorized to execute all necessary agreements, certifications, or reimbursement requests for federal aid and/or state aid on behalf of the town of Fort Anne with the New York State Department of Transportation in connection with the advancement or approval of the project, and providing for resolution number 53 of 2017, administration of the project and the municipality's funding of project costs and permanent funding of the local share of federal aid and state aid eligible project costs and all project costs within appropriations therefore that are not so eligible. Resolved that a certified copy of this resolution be filed with the New York State Commissioner of Transportation by attaching it to necessary agreement in connection with the project.
We need a motion to,
So moved. I'll second it.
any further discussion needed? I votes aye.
Aye.
Any nays, any abstentions? Next on the agenda, it's 7:13, it's a chance for the public to voice any comments that they may have. Is there anyone in the audience? Dale?
Yeah, well, I want to say something about Virginia. You know, she was the longest serving historian in New York State. Nobody, I don't even know how much work she did behind the scenes, because I know she did a lot, but she did so much. Even when she was so sick, she did all that stuff. And about Battle Hill, she's been fighting at Battle Hill for 50 years. I mean, she's the one that started all this way back. All I'm saying, and I would like to, which I mentioned to her, is that something be named for her up there, something, a plaque or something up on Battle Hill, you know, yeah, so, but I think, you know, she was different. She was different than anybody else I ever met. If anybody said that we never had a disagreement, they didn't know it. But she was a good person, and she was a close friend of mine, and I tell you, and will be missed. I mean, she will be missed by everybody. So that's all I want to say.
I think it's a great idea. We should keep that in mind as we move forward.
Yeah.
Okay, is there anyone else that would like to be heard this evening in the audience? Since I see no one's hand, it's now 7:15, and we will close the public comment at 7:15. And it's now 7:06. There's no need for an executive session this evening, so it's now 7:16. We need a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
I votes aye. Any nays, any abstentions?